Welcome back to Huawei Routing and Switching Elite Training for HCIE. Today topic we are going to discuss on WAN Layer 2 technologies. Let's start our part 4.
Here we are going to look into configure multi-PPP, alright, or multi-link PPP, alright. So we have company A here. Company A need to increase the bandwidth, alright, so you need to do the following. The first requirement is to bind all the links connecting interface on R1 and R2 in a static MP group. Now, as I mentioned earlier on in the previous slide, we do have two ways for us to configure MP-PPP. Either you are using the MP group or using the virtual template. So the question requires us to use the MP group. A second requirement is to set the IP address of the MP group. R1 will be on 12.111/24 and R2 using 12.112. So remember that the IP address is set on the MP group interface, not on the physical interface. And lastly, we need to configure the authentication, but this time we are going to configure the PEP authentication. Alright, so we have the R1 as the authenticating party and R2 as an authenticated party using the username Huawei and the password as hello. Alright, so let's jump into our lab and start the lab now. Here we have R1. I have three interfaces. You can see that we have a serial 100, 101 and 200, whereas R1, the IP address in the MP group are supposed to be 12.111 and in R2 is 12.112. R1 are supposed to be authenticating and R2 is authenticated. Alright, so let's do the AAA first. Alright, so this one we are going to configure the local user, Huawei password, cipher hello. Okay, then local user Huawei, then followed by the service type. We are going to use the PPP. Okay, so this will be on the username and password on the authenticating party. Next, we have to create the interface. So let's create the interface MP group. So we are going to create the first group here, 000. The IP address that we are going to configure will be on the logical interface, which is this case here is 12.1.1.1/24. Now, as you can see that currently I do not have any MP group. So when I do a display interface brief, you can see that the MP group here, okay, is currently down. The reason is because that inside the MP group there is no member. Alright, so we have three members here, 100, 101 and 200. So let's go into the interface S100. So by default the protocol is already PPP, so we are going to configure the PPP MP group, so we put them into the group 0/0/0. At the same time, we also need to tell them that the PPP authentication mode that we are using here is PEP. That's correct. So let me do a display this. So these are the commands that we are going to configure to serial 101 and 200. So what I need to do is just copy and paste this into the interface serial 101 and I paste it there. Okay, that's it. Then serial 200. Okay, and I'm going to paste it there. Alright, that's good. So let me do a display current. Alright, so you can see that I have the MP group. Okay, that is my IP address. Alright, it's 100. Okay, already configured. 101 and 200. Now here the authentication failed because that I have not configured on R2, and the MP-PPP also fails because that R2 is not configured MP group yet. So let's jump to R2. Now remember, R2 is an authenticated party. Now we have to configure our interface MP group. So let's create our group 000 with the IP address of 12.1.1.2/24. Alright, then we have to configure the authentication plus the MP group. So first, let me go into the interface 00. Alright, so that's my first interface, the physical interface. I'm going to configure the PPP PEP local user Huawei with the password, alright, cipher hello. Okay, and I'm going to configure PPP MP. Alright, so we have our MP group. Our MP group will be 0/0/0. Okay, so if I go into, alright, you can see that now it's up. Okay, the interface is up. Let me show you here, display interface brief. You can see that we have 12.1.1.2 and you can see that it's up. Alright, and if I'm going to ping to 12.1.1.1, you can see it's working, but this is only one that is working. Now how I'm going to verify that? I can do a display PPP MP. As you can see that there's only one that is up. If I go into the router 1 and I do a display PPP MP, you can see that only the first interface is up, the other two is down, because you need to have both to able to negotiate for it to up. So let me go to R2 and configure the rest. 0100. Let me do a display this. I just simply copy and paste here where I think I have a problem because my username and password is being cipher. Okay, so no worries. So I just do a PPP MP group 0/0, sorry, 0/0/0. Okay, then I'm going to do a PPP PAP local user Huawei password cipher hello. Okay, then finally I go to the interface 00200. I do the same thing, PPP MP group 0/0/0. Then I do a PPP PAP local user Huawei password cipher hello. Alright, so let the negotiation happen, and let me do one more time, display PPP MP. Okay, so I have here 100. Oops, I think that I missed up the serial 101. Yeah, I missed out this one. Let me redo it. PPP MP group 0/0/0. PPP PAP local user Huawei password cipher hello. Okay, display PPP MP. So I have here up and down. Alright, so let me check again. So I have up, and I'm waiting for the last one, 101 to be up. Okay, so you can see that now it's up. Let me do one more time, display PPP MP. Now you can see that this interface is up. Alright, so if I do a ping 12.1.1.1, in theory they will be using the three interfaces, but again it is depend on the load balancing mechanism that this MPPPP is using. Alright, so here we have the configuration of this MPPPP. So let me show you one more time. We have to create the logical interface, and then inside the physical interface we just tell them that the authentication and the interface belong to the MP group, which is 0/0/0. Okay. Alright, so it's time for us to look into configuration of PPPoE. Alright, so it's a very interesting lab here. So again, this is a company A having this type of requirement. So the first requirement is to configure R4. So this guy will be our PPPoE server, and PPPoE server need to allocate IP address using the range of 1110/24 to the client, and we do need PAP authentication. So the PAP authentication for R1, R2, and R3. Now because all these users are different users, so we are going to use a different username and the password. So the password is R1 for user Huawei R1, that definitely will be on R1 here, and so on and so forth. So R2, password is R2, and Huawei R3, password is R3. So we need to configure the PPPoE server on R4, and I'm going to configure the R1 for PPPoE client. So let's jump to our lab and have a look on how to solve this issue. So here is our lab. So I have 3 routers here that is acting as a client, and 1 router here, router 4, acting as a PPPoE server. Okay, so in the middle I have a hub that connecting all these router together. So let me jump to router 4 first. So router 4 is a PPPoE server. First, I'm going to configure the AAA user. Okay, so I'm going to create a local user called Huawei R1 with the password. Let's say I'm going to use a simple. Can I use a simple? Nope. They allow me only to use a cipher. Fine. So this is the user. Then I have a R2. Okay. And with the password is R2. Alright, let me delete this. R2 and local user Huawei R3, password cipher is R3. There you go. So I have a 3 users already created. Okay, Huawei R1, R2, R3 with the password R1, R2, R3. Next, I'm going to create the IP pool. Alright, remember that the question asks us that the pool are supposed to start from the 1110. Okay, so I'm going to create a pool, IP pool, and the pool name, let's call it as a pool number 1. Okay, and the gateway here I'm going to configure as 111. That's my IP address on the interface, and the network that I'm going to use, network will be 1110 with a mask of 24. Right, now more important here is that after I create these 2 steps, which step 1 is to create 3 user, and the step 2 I create a pool. Now the important part here on the PPPoE server is to create a virtual template. So let me create a virtual template. Okay, so this is my virtual template, and I can create so many templates. Let me start from 0. Here I'm going to configure the authentication. Okay, PEP. Okay, remote address pool. The pool that I'm going to use, remember that the pool that we created just now is called pool_1. Okay, right, and finally I need to configure the IP address, and the IP address for this guy is 1111.24. Okay, so the virtual template is done, and finally I need to type this virtual template into my interface. And this interface is gate 000 that is facing the client. So I go to the interface gate 000 and I apply PPPoE server. I bind the virtual template number 0 into it. Okay, so when I do a display PPPoE server, okay, server session all, currently there's no session because I just configured the OE server. So this is done. So the next thing here is for me to go to R1 and start to configure the client. So let me show you the interface here. Alright, the virtual template 111/24 is up. Okay, but currently there is no session yet. Okay, so you can see that there's somebody who actually connect to me. The reason is because that I have configured router 2 and router 3. That's fine. Now I'm show you the router 1. Now on the PPPoE client, first I need to go to create a dialer interface because this is a logical interface. And when I do this, you can see that the interface dialer 1 default is PPP. Next, I have to configure the authentication. PPP PEP local user Huawei R1 password. I can use simple password here, doesn't matter, R1. Okay, so remember that that is what I created on the AAA on R4. IP address PPP negotiate. Okay, so that I can get the IP address from R1, sorry, from R4. Dialer bundle, so I need to configure so that this is belong to bundle 1. So I make sure that this is number 1. Okay, so we have here dialer bundle 1, dialer group first, DIALER, dialer group 1. Okay, I think that I missed out something here. Let me do a display this. It said that I need to configure the dialer CC first. In this case, my dialer user has not configured. Alright, my mistake. So it have to be configured in a sequence. Alright, so dialer user. Alright, because the user have to configure to say that I'm going to use a user called R1. Then only you can configure dialer bundle. Alright, so this bundle 1 and dialer group. This is group 1. Display this. Now you have the interface dialer. Now this interface dialer have to attach to the gate 00. But before that, who is going to allow to bring up this interface? So we need to create a rules. Remember that we have the dialer group here that refer to a dialer list or dialer rules. Okay, so we have to create a dialer rules, just like accessories, all right, to determine that who is the or what type of traffic can bring up the interface. So we are going to use a dialer rules 1 IP permit. That means that as long as it's IP, let's bring up the interface. All right, so this dialer rules 1 correspond to the dialer group 1 to give them certain permission to bring up the interface. Now I'm going to attach this whole dialer, or in this case the dialer bundle, okay, into the interface gig 00. So let me go into the interface G000 PPPoE client die bundle number 1. Enter. Now I just have to make sure that the interface is up. Okay, now I just do a display IP interface brief. I should get the IP address. You can see that I'm getting 111.252. Okay, and the interface is up. So if I'm going to do a ping to 1111, that's my gateway. Now you can see that it's up. Remember that the theory is that it should get the initialization and the whole discovery process, the session. So now we are going to look into the session on the server. Now this is the session on the server. All right. So where do I have so many sessions? Because that on R2 I already configure. All right. So that the configuration is exactly identical as in R1. It's just that to save time, I have configured the dialer. All right. And I also attach the dialer group into the interface with the dialer rules as well. Same go for the R3. So from here we have confirmed that all our dialer is working. Okay, and we also can verify that if I go back to R2 to verify that our session is run, display PPPoE client session all. Okay, sorry, I need to check here. All right, summary. There you have it. Okay, you can see that my session is up. That's my MAC address of a client, MAC address of a server. The interface is up on the gig 00, and I'm going to do a ping to 1111. As you can see, that is also working. All right, so here we have the configuration of PPPoE. Here we have another topology. We are going to look into the frame relay. So company A again need to configure the frame relay. So to prevent split horizon issue, perform the following configuration. First, we have to disable the inverse ARP. Okay, that is simple. So you just do undo FR inverse ARP. Next, set the subinterface type of S/0/0.1 to point to multi-point. Now it's actually referring to R3. So for the first one, we are going to do a point to multi-point, and subinterface on the S002. Here we are going to configure as a point to point. Now we can use a physical interface in R1 and R2 as well, so there's no issue. Alright, so let's jump into our router and see how we can do the configuration.
Thanks for watching. Please do not forget to subscribe to our channel.